So Paul's letter to the Colossians, a continuation from yesterday, and you remember he is beginning to talk on baptism. Paul knows that the community here of Colossians, that they're baptized, so he's continuing to tap into that. And what he does here is he kind of gives this, like practically speaking, this big umbrella type, umbrella, broad brush, and this is how you live out your baptism here, Paul says. And, there's he's drawing upon these two elements of baptism, right? In baptism, one goes into the water, goes under the water, especially in the, back in the day, there was the complete submersion into the water. Into the water, you die with Christ. Coming up out of the water, you rise with Christ. These two elements here. And then a baptism, and what Paul's doing here is he's saying, this becomes the Christian life. The Christian life becomes daily dying with Christ, putting to death the things of the world, putting to death the flesh. And Paul lists all these things that you can read what he says and go over them again. Dying of the things of the world, the things of the flesh, and rising with Christ, thinking of things that are above, being raised to the spiritual life more and more. This becomes the Christian life. So he says, if you were raised with Christ, so he's tapping and he's saying, hey, you guys were baptized, remember? And so now seek what is above, he says. We're easily bogged down with things of the world. That's why, so how do we seek things that are above? Of course, through prayer. The liturgy helps us think of things that are above. Art, when you came in, or at least if you came in from the back, you see the Pieta in the back there, which was installed yesterday. Sacred art, what does it do? It helps us to keep from our nose on the ground and like in the world and with the busyness. When you see sacred art, when you see something beautiful, what does it do? It uplifts the heart. It helps us to seek things that are above. When I'm confronted with beauty, when I see sacred art, it's like you kind of just stopped. I remember in seminary, we did something called Night Fever at the cathedral, or the Holy Name Cathedral in Chicago, like 9, 10, 11 p.m. at night when people are, leaving the bars, and we would just go and walk up to people and hand them a candle and say, just stop in the church and say a prayer for peace, by coming in. And inside we'd have, 10, 15 priests lined up hearing confessions. We'd have some beautiful music going on, and Holy Name Cathedral, of course, is just beautiful. People would come in, backward hats, and just, holding, a solo cup from the bar, and they'd come in to Holy Name, right? I mean, typically we don't want to do that, right? But the goal of this was the evangelization purpose. As they're, kind of in the spot on whatever they were, leaving the bars at 11, 12 o'clock, midnight, they come in, and what do you see? Is you see them kind of just, some people crying, some people just going around looking. It uplifts the heart. Kind of stops you dead in your tracks of worldly things and uplifts you. So, that's why we have the Pieta in the back. Seek what is above. What's his next move? And since you've died with Christ, he says, put to death then the parts of you that are earthly. This becomes the Christian life. And he goes through immorality, passion, evil desires. And again, you can go through this list. And I just, maybe to close here, to stress what Paul stresses, he talks about like, that was then in your life. This is now. Remember that you died with Christ. And remember that you rose with him. How did you rise with him? Because of his death on the cross is what brought you up. So he says, put to death those things. He says, by this you too once conducted yourselves this way, when you lived in that way. But now you must put them all away. And he gives another new list: anger, fury, malice, and etc. Stop lying to another. And then he stresses it again. Why? Since you have taken off your old self with its practices and put on the new self. Tapping in the image of baptism, what did one get? They would take off their clothes, go in the water, go down. They would come out and they would put on new clothes. We still do that in the baptismal rite. They put on, you receive a new white garment. What's the old self? It's the old man, Adam. What's the new self? It's the new man that's now in Christ. So Paul stresses this like that was then. This is now. Put to death those parts of once you've once conducted yourselves that way, but you're new now. You're in Christ, and that becomes the Christian life. And it's only possible by the grace of God. The closer we go into Christ, become more like him, the more we're compelled to put to death the things of the world and of the flesh.